hard because all the places are gone. Every memory that I have is gone. The physical places are gone. The only one that is still in existence and that I have positive memories about is Miser's Market. I mean, even though it isn't the original Miser's Market, the physical space is still there. And I can remember going to the grocery store. It was called a grocery store because they would slice lunch meat, they would slice cheese, they had bacon, they had pork chops, they had, hamburger meat. Just about anything you could get at Kroger's, you could get there. So my grandmother would write me a note and she'd put an envelope and she'd put money in the envelope and she'd write how much money she gave me and exactly what she wanted. So I would go into the store and I would give it to the lady at the front desk, the front counter. And she'd get my order together and stuff and she'd give it to me and I'd walk back down the street to my grandma's house. Like one of the things that I can remember my grandmother always having me get is pickled bologna. Pickled bologna with the red skin on it. It had to have that red skin on it because that meant that it was fresh. You know what I mean? But Miser's was the only place that you could go to get if you just wanted one sleeve of crackers. You know how crackers comes in a 4-pack? If you were going to the park and you were taking your pickled bologna or you were taking, I don't know, Vienna sausages or a can of potted meat, but you didn't want to go home to get crackers, so you just get your whatever snack and your crackers and just go to the park. And then the little Huggies, you could get the little Huggies like 4 for $1. And he tried to keep them cold, but in the summertime it was really, really hard to keep them cold because they would sell so fast. Because people were going to the pool or people were taking their kids to daycare or, whatever. So they would buy them 4 at a time, 4 for $1. I mean, I was so affected by the closing of Miser's Market. I couldn't even go on the last day that he was there. I could not. I was so emotional. I was emotional because it was memories, because, you could go in there and they knew who you were and they knew what you wanted. And, if you say, oh, I want some bologna. Oh, you want a slice like you had a slice the last time? It was just really sad when he closed down because he had been there for about 40 plus years.
Love the Washington Well. They helped me through everything I got. That's why I'm here. And the people I work for, they very good to me. And everybody else. They helped everybody. They helped me. Cool with that. Let me take that word. They're not bad people. They trying to make sure we have somewhere to be, take care of shit.
My favorite place in Price Hill probably has to be Sassafras Garden in Lower Price Hill. And the reason I love it is that it's in the heart of the neighborhood. Sassafras Garden smells like earth and rain and fresh plants. It's a beautiful space where neighbors have collaborated with organizations like Community Matters and the Cincinnati Zoo to create local gardens, spaces for children to play, and there's even this gazebo where people perform. When I worked for another nonprofit called Wordplay, teenagers from across the city all joined in Sassafras Garden to do spoken word performances, and there were audiences with family members of all ages sitting and listening to the power of their creative voices, to sharing food and having a picnic and family gatherings in Sassafras, to even just last week, I got to sit down with some of my favorite people and we got to talk about putting together a new entrepreneurship. It was one of our neighbors, Miss Marisha, who's creating a baked goods company. She's calling it Wilhelmina's Treats, and she's going to be selling her baked goods through a new farmer's market that everyone's been putting together in the neighborhood, and through the new Miser's grocery store that's going to be opening up soon too. And to be able to sit in that garden with all of the trees around and talk about each of the different aspects of what it would take for her to create that business and how we would all be there together to make it happen, it was just a really special time.
I am a proud Price Hill homeowner since 2005. First house I've ever bought, and first house I haven't been able to get rid of. No, just kidding. There's a guy named Johnny Rozanka who had a dad named Mike Rozanka. And Mr. Rozanka he was always the skinniest guy. He was always smoking cigarettes. And his son and I became really good friends. We're very, 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 very close with one another. We know each other's families. We do holidays together. If somebody gets sick, we cook food, pray for each other. I mean, it's a very, very tight-knit community. One day I got up really early and I was getting ready for a speech. Now, I do a lot of speeches that are of pretty far distance, so I get up early, and sometimes it's before the crack of dawn, and this time it was before the crack of dawn. And I see Mike Rozanka. Now, Mike didn't drive, right? If he needed to go to the store, I usually gave him a ride. And Johnny, his son, told me, "Hey, Nick, don't worry, you can always park in my spot." And I'd been parking in the spot, and Mike came out, and I guess he had some people coming over to his house, and he was mad that I had parked in his spot. He had a really close spot to the door, to the steps, and I apologized to him, and he I'm pretty sure he called me a selfish MRFer. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure that was our last words together. And then after that, I went on to my speech, and I came home. When I came in from out of town, there was multiple people around my condo complex. Mike had died of an overdose. The thing about it that really touched me was he was on his way to go get the drugs that morning. And to my knowledge, I was the last one to talk to him. Now that I know that he had died, it was my responsibility to call Johnny. Now, Johnny was his son, his only son. And he came over that day and we shared a moment. And he said, "You know what? My dad always wanted to take you to his old church." And Assumption was probably the ugly stepchild of all the other Catholic churches. I think it was one of the first ones out here. All the other ones are really grand, and they have lots of ivory everywhere, and this one doesn't. But when I went to Assumption Church, that was when things were a little bit different. I remember walking towards the church and seeing the people that were there. And I live in Price Hill. I've lived in Price Hill for multiple years. And I just saw the level of love and also the level of poverty that really that represented Mike. And I could tell he wanted me to go to that church because he wanted me to know a piece of him that all the other neighbors didn't know. You know, and it wasn't necessarily just the poverty, and it wasn't the addictions. It wasn't those things. It was the love, like the love that you feel when you're at Assumption Church. And it was crazy because I saw all these little kids come in. Some were Hispanic and some were white. I was the only African American in the room that I could see. And the parking lot was old. The church building was old. The school beside it was old. Like, you could just tell. But there was a certain level of love that was there. But I went in there and I saw how many mothers were there with their children, how many grandmothers were there with their children, how many dads were there with their children. And there was this beautiful scene when I walked out. It was like sun was shining, and I looked up, and there was this beautiful ray of sunlight. It was just right over the church. I remember taking a picture of it and thinking to myself, like, Mike, I got to see another piece of you. It was just a beautiful, special occasion. So a lot of people, when they look at Price Hill, you look at the poverty, or you look at the violence, and you look at the dirt, if you will. But a lot of people don't get to see the beautiful people that have invested their time and their money and some their safety to be involved in a bigger community, a community that believes in the intimacy and the appreciation for family.
I spent a lot of time at Price Hill Chili when I was a kid. My dad's family, I don't know, I think they must have gone there every Sunday after church. Everybody knew us. It was like walking into, your grandma's kitchen in some ways. And probably what sticks with me the most is the smell of pancakes and geta. They have the best geta in the city, hands down, no argument. It's much the same as it was when I was a kid. It's bigger, but it hasn't changed a ton. Feels the same as soon as you walk in. And a lot of the servers are the same servers that worked there when I was little. I remember taking my kids once a few years ago when my daughter was, maybe 5, and the server, everybody kept coming up to her and saying hello and telling her how much she looked like look like her mom at that age, and Bailey couldn't wrap her head around the fact that all these people actually did know me at age 5 and could have good authority say that's how much she looked like me.
The truth be told, that when I was born and came home from the hospital, I came home to a little house on West 8th Street. My grandparents lived there till 1992. That is today directly across the little street from the Incline Theater, where I am the director. The beautiful thing about the Incline Theater, we built it out of our own experiences. You know, one of the exciting things was we got to sit down and design it, and we learned from what worked on the Showboat Majestic. We learned what things worked from our experience over at Westwood Town Hall, starting out with the kids. So everything we learned, we got to pour into that space in a place that I love. I love from my soles of my feet to the top of my head, and from the first day I was born to my present day. You know, today across the street, across Matson Place, there's the Olden View Park, which is, you know, a brilliant lookout into the city. But when I was a kid, that was literally the demolished ruins of the true Incline house, the house at the top of the hill where the Incline tram would come up and leave off people or pick up people and go down into the city. So when I was a kid, that was just nothing but rubble. The fun part is in the old days when I was young in the Stone Age, there was Crosley Field just down to the left. And of course, every 4th of July, they had fireworks after the ball game. So we'd stand on top of the ruins of the old Incline house and watch the fireworks from the top of the hill. And it was literally shooting up kind of right in front of us. It was a kind of a neat place. And for a kid, you know, getting to walk around in kind of like the rubble of an old place like that was very exciting for us.
Yeah, Priceville has a charm, and it's so realistic. I know my neighbors really well, and they aren't like, oh, hey, Celeste. You know, like they are like, hey, how's it going? What's up? You know, like we are just frank and honest with each other, and I've always appreciated that. And yeah, my favorite part about like Enright specifically is that it has that urban feel. Like you literally go up one block and you're on Warsaw and you're at Kroger's and it's a bustling corner. But then we also have this reprieve and have Imago, you know, the nature preserve right behind us. And so it's like my two favorite parts of this world, the human beings and the nature, are like combined very closely. Specifically, my backyard, and more specifically, this little nook that we have carved out. We call it Buddha Bench. We just have like a little statues, and there's a bench space, and there's like all my favorite plants are planted around there, and it gets really lovely and shady, and you can look over our whole visage, and then it's just lined with trees, you know. In the late spring, we have a black locust tree that is kind of situated behind our Buddha Bench there, and when the black locusts bloom, you can it smells like honey. It's like honeysuckle, but amplified and turned up, you know, a lot. They just hang down, and they're the most beautiful E-shaped blossoms. They're entire clusters, and yeah, I have very fond memories last spring of sitting out there and just kind of like allowing that essence to come down when it's shady in the afternoon, especially. Just a special moment that I remember. It was last spring as well, and we had just gone through like a really rough time. Like our whole family, like just so many things had changed, and I think I just spent the whole morning crying, and then he came home from work, and we were just talking, and we just sat on Buddha Bench and just like kind of cried in each other's arms for a while, and feeling so held by that person and that space, and like knowing that I could leave those emotions right there on that bench, and they could just stay there. That was really special. It's like walking into, like you know how olfactory senses, like you smell something and you're just kind of hit with that memory. Like that's what happens sometimes when I sit down there, especially like in the evening, like as the sun's going down, as like everyone's calming down for the day. I'm like kind of brought back to that place and just remembering like how sweet of a moment it was.
She has this really unique sense of community that I haven't really experienced anywhere else, and part of me thinks it's because of the diversity, the socioeconomic diversity, cultural, ethnic diversity, where people just are like getting to know their neighbors. One place I actually see this a lot is online on Nextdoor, which is like this digital neighborhood forum that you can only access in your specific neighborhood. And I posted on there a few times. A lot, one time my cat ran away and people found him in the neighborhood because I posted on there. But you see all kinds of things. I mean, you see people having really hard times. They'll post on Nextdoor, hey, I don't have any food left in my pantry. Can someone help me out? And sure enough, at least a couple of neighbors will say, yeah, I've got some groceries. I can drop them off. Just let me know. Let me know when. That's just really, it feels really rare. It feels really, really uncommon. And to see that among people who are neighbors that might not necessarily know each other is really, really cool.
Yeah, Mount Echo. Well, last summer, some music performances. So what there were 2 of them last year, and we planned a bunch more this year, but obviously we can't make them happen because of the pandemic. But so last year we had 2 different shows. We had one that we dubbed as the Sunrise Show, and then another one that we dubbed as the Sunset Show. And so for each one, we brought in some musicians who played like very relaxing, atmospheric type of music, like Elsa Kennedy, Fritz Pape. So we brought in these musicians to come and play just like this atmospheric music, and then we also had a yoga instructor who came and like taught a yoga class to anybody who wanted to participate. And we were also like making pancakes and just serving them to people, pancakes and coffee, and so it was just like this very like community oriented, very relaxed, peaceful type of deal. And it was really cool because Mount Echo Park overlooks the skyline of downtown Cincinnati. And so, especially during the sunrise show, you could actually like see the sun coming up over the skyline, and it's just very beautiful. Like with everything that was going on at that time, just very beautiful and spiritual experience, I guess.
And do you understand what we didn't say? Do you understand what we didn't say? Do you understand what we...
Same question. Why are we here?
Why are we here?
That's a big question, Danny.
Existential.
Well, we are 2 days away from finishing, hopefully, our collaborative commissions project. And so we're here to hash it out, talk about what the experience was like. Don't laugh at me. What the experience was like, why we are doing this, why we wanted to do it, and maybe a bit of like why or how we know each other.
Yeah.
I was excited about this project because I've always wanted to do some sort of tour thing with audio memories, and I feel like it's cool that we had this opportunity to do it in a virtual way, even though that's brought on a lot of challenges, which I think we should also reflect on. But yeah, and an excuse to work with Katie, who I miss because we used to work together. So I feel like it's been fun to kind of collaborate, the 4 of us, on this project.
It has been fun.
Yeah, Katie, you're an amazing photographer and also just person. But when we first started talking about this project with just Myra, Danny, and I, because we are the continuance team and we knew we needed to partner with a photographer. I think Myra, like we all kind of threw out some names of people we know, and then Myra was like, no. But she's like, I used to work with Katie and she lives in Price Hill, so it seemed like a good fit. And then your general flexibility through this whole thing, like legitimately, if we had texted you a location the night before, you would go that morning to take a photo. Like, that's just rock star behavior.
Which happened last night, by the way.
But then we didn't even have to go because we already went. So it worked out perfectly.
It's true.
Was that the Sassafras Garden?
Yeah, I was talking to Reba about it, and I was like, so it's the one with the vines on the wall and like the little gazebo. And she was like, yeah, and there's little white benches like tucked back in like a wooded area. I was like, okay, that's 100% where I was.
Yeah.
No, it was awesome to do this project, just like because I started doing the portrait series with Price Hill, just to connect with the residents around here. So then kind of expanding that into like people's memories and getting to meet in different spaces in different parts of the neighborhood has been really fun.
Definitely. And I've been interested in a long time in doing a project. And in most of our projects, this is a theme, but where the people that we're collecting memories from are not just participants, but they're guiding what the final deliverable will be. And so for the Price Hill Creative Community Festival, it just presented this really unique opportunity to explore a neighborhood and place-based memories that way, but allow the people who live there and love Price Hill to kind of set the map for us.
I'm so sorry. I'm going to go see if I just heard somebody knock.
You're good.
Yeah,
It's super weird.
Even for me, like living so close to Lower Price Hill, I mean, it's a it's a 5-minute walk down the hill. I didn't know like the Sassafras field existed or like any of those community gardens really. Like I noticed them driving through, but not noticed like the extent of how large they were and how much impact they had on Lower Price Hill. So that was really awesome, like to discover things in my own neighborhood too.
Is it literally I haven't looked at your photos of the Sassafras Garden
It's
yet.
like all kinds of stuff. It's like a little bit of everything. I guess it's just like a general community garden, but even like talking to Felicia, she said the gate's always open and you can always go back there and just like hang out and like take some time and relax.
And like as we were walking by, just picked off blackberries off the bush right then, and you could eat them, and it's so sweet. Katie did step on a snake there.
Oh yeah, I did. I was trying to think of where I stepped on a snake when I was hiking yesterday. I was like, where did I step on a snake?
Lower Price.
That's wild. That's wild because in one of the memories that was shared from Sassafras Garden, they talked about seeing a snake in the garden.
Reba said it was like a pretty big snake, but for some reason it wasn't scary just because the environment was so welcoming and calming that they were just like, yeah, that's a snake. But
that's so lovely.
I know.
Meanwhile,
yeah. I mean, okay, there's a difference though of seeing a snake and stepping on a snake.
True.
I don't think anybody wants to step on one.
It's true.
Yee.
How we would have done it differently and what we learned from doing this all virtually. Yeah. Although
yeah, definitely.
you were out there, you and Katie are out there doing things normally, I guess. But like for me, I definitely did things differently.
For me, nothing has really changed just because to do my job, I like physically have to see people. I think the only thing that affected my part of it is like people not wanting to schedule photos or not wanting to do portraits because they just are like self-quarantining or don't want to go out, which is totally fine. But I definitely feel like that kind of impacts the photo aspect a little, and like not wanting to shoot in Price Hill Chili just because it's kind of awkward to take up tight spaces during a pandemic when you're supposed to be seated at all times, things like that.
Yeah. I feel like personally I definitely still went out and talked to people, It was different still, though. It being in the setting of COVID, I think it was different in ways that when we did see people, or when I did see people, it seemed like people were stoked to talk. And maybe that's just Price Hill people, but it seemed like everybody was definitely into, and look, another human, I want to talk to them. It's like a couple weeks ago, I found myself wrangling chickens in Northside for probably like 5 hours, way too long. And a friend, Scott Holtzman, mentioned that none of us would have been out there for that long wrangling chickens unless we had been stuck alone in our apartment for 4 months. You know, we would have given up a lot earlier. So I think the general, I guess, endurance changed for me. I will say a lot of the video editing stuff has been harder. It's strange because the virtual stuff is what's been harder for me because I don't have Wi-Fi or a good Wi-Fi. And I don't have AC in my apartment. And so not getting to go to the library or a coffee shop or even get to work on the video with Myra, like it would have been so much easier if Myra and I could have sat with our computers side by side and been like, oh, it's in the Windows tab or it's in the, you know, whatever. Like, no, use After Effects, not Premiere. Rather, we're like emailing back and forth multiple times a day, having phone calls. So for some reason, the virtual stuff was harder for me in the virtual life we now live.
Yeah, it definitely presented some uniquely to COVID challenges, I think process-wise, but I like what you're speaking to about the memory sharing, how people had an eagerness to have a conversation with you. I felt similarly on the virtual interviews and memory collections that I was doing. And I think that was foundational for our project too. As we were writing the proposal, it was during the shelter in place order. And I think that was part of the desire to do a project like this, was to be able to give people a reason to go back to places in memory that they couldn't in physical ways. So while I think it was challenging to not have the in-person connection that's normally there while we're creating our projects as a team, but also as we're collecting memories from people, I think that there was this added need for a project like this that wouldn't have been there in the same way, I think.
For sure. I'm curious to know what y'all's favorite parts have been.
Ooh. I love photographing people, and it's been really fun to capture people like in their space and just kind of connect with them in that space on why that space is special to them.
I love that because mine connects to that. I think always in these projects, it's the memory collection itself that I like the most, the conversations and how people answer our questions about memory. Just such a uniquely personal way to interact with another person is through this kind of memory exploration. I love it.
What was yours, Myra?
Probably connecting with Melissa, who is a new person. And it's just like you guys are saying, I think it's thrilling to meet somebody new and talk about something that they really care so much about, and learn about a history that I didn't know about, and food, like pickled bologna. I didn't know about pickled bologna. So yeah, that's a standout moment for sure, that conversation and that interview.
Yeah, she was great. I love listening to hers.
And like having a party in an empty pool, I love that idea. That's a great idea.
I love that. Mac?
I think my favorite part was probably the day that Katie and I went down and we talked to Felicia, because not just not just Felicia being my favorite part, but that day specifically. And it ended up not raining, but it kept thundering in Price Hill, but the rain wasn't anywhere to be seen, which was strange. So everybody still stayed out. And yeah, there was just so many people on the street, and you can tell by her audio, you hear like people holler at her from across the street or vice versa, or I don't know. It was just a good day. It was just a vibrant day. And then personally, it's been nice to gain or sharpen the skills of animating that I had maybe started, and then this project and the deadline forcing me to like, okay, stop putting it on your to-do list that you're gonna learn, just like do it now. So that feels good. It feels good to sharpen a skill and do something fun.
I feel that way about audio editing for sure. It was something I already liked to do, but it was fun to learn more about it. And that added challenge of having virtual recordings or having different methods for audio connection or collection and trying to make it sound consistent despite collecting memories over a web call. Oof, super interesting.
How did the on the editing side, how were the Ringer recordings, like files, like were they pretty good?
Yeah, I would say arguably some of the best. And I really like the feature of Ringer that you can eliminate the interviewers part of the audio. That was helpful. That was a huge lift. But it was always like a moment of extreme celebration when Ringer actually connected. I was always so worried that the platform we were using wasn't going to record.
Trusting computers. I don't know why it still is hard, but still is.
It is.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Myra.
I was gonna ask, what do you guys hope people take away from this project?
Ooh, that's a good one.
The Price Hill is awesome and filled with really awesome and dynamic people and spaces. Because I feel like Price Hill has a bad rap, kind of. I mean, growing up in Blue Ash, Price Hill had a bad rap, you know? And it's not. I love living in this neighborhood, and I love the people I meet in this neighborhood. And I want more people to realize that, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed my time there, and I'm always on the hunt for a new apartment, one with a bathtub and that allows dogs, so let me know. But it seems that Price Hill has a lot to offer, and I would love to move there one day if I can.
I was really blown away by the sense of community that like nearly everybody that we talked to talked about Price Hill having, and just like a pride in the neighborhood and just the rich history. Like 2 of the people I talked to had been there their whole lives and just really, really love their neighborhood, and you could really feel that. So that was cool to hear.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel that way every time I talk to anyone from Price Hill, even outside this project. It just seems like everybody's on the same page about wanting to make the neighborhood better and wanting to stay there and make it better together. Super cool. I hope people take away a different way of experiencing their neighborhood through the lens of other people's memories. I found in Tim's memory in particular, there was almost this double vision of looking at the places that currently exist in Price Hill and imagining the places that were there like 40 years ago. So like imagining the Incline house before it was the Incline Theater, or even imagining his grandparents' house that is now just a grassy lot, stuff like that. I thought that was an interesting way for me to experience Price Hill differently. But as always with our projects, I hope that people feel encouraged to share their own memories with each other, with us, and kind of take on that kind of sharing as a mechanism for connecting with other people and maybe having access to creativity in that way, taking other people's memories and creating something from it, or maybe just creating connection from it. But yeah, I guess those are the major hopes.
Cool.
Mac, did you share what you hope for the project?
I just said ditto. Like, second that. I can do one though. I think a lot of what all of you said, right? I second that. I think the main ones I'll pull out, I don't think they're unique. I think they've all been said, but the big ones for me would be the lens. Like, we all have a lens and we all see through it, and hopefully we're all working towards learning when to remove that lens and put on a different one. And art, and especially a project like this, doesn't really make it challenging for you to do. We're like giving you a testimonial and a story of other people. So I'm hoping that people listen to this and they see their experience and find similarities maybe with their own, or maybe differences, and that's cool too. But that's the thing I think I'm excited about, as with a lot of art, is that you can often use it as a vehicle to get somebody to look through a different lens. So that's dope. I hope that anybody who sees the video finds it at the end our email or our website and wants to connect, because though Continuance is doing this project on Price Hill, I think our main thing is to create experiences for people around memories, their memory and other people's memories, and that kind of doesn't have an end. It's always evolving, and I like when people can just email us, even if we don't have a project that just came out, with a memory or an idea on how to connect or how to make something off their memory. So that would be really cool. I gotta stop making that face. There's gonna be 1,000 screenshots of me like this.
I just keep almost sneezing, so I catch myself like.
I'll be the one taking the screenshots of all of you when this airs.
Yes.
It's like, keep it for our own personal blooper reel.